Hey, good Friday. And as usually, every second Friday, me, Andrei Syuchenko, and my fellow business partner, Roland Svozolins, we are having a discussion about sales and marketing topics from the B2B world. And this time, we are just two together in our conversation, no guests, but nevertheless, topic is quite an exciting and I think quite interesting for many of us. So, how then have the behavior of customers changed, and what should we do maybe differently into 2024? And that's the topic we decided to cover today. And why so? Because lately, by going through some of the strategy planning and some our own researches, we found out that there are quite a lot of interesting insights to be shared, what we can also discuss today in terms of what has impacted our buyers, especially in the technology world, and how that all changes in the society as such impacting the way how people are making decisions. And for us as a marketeers and salespeople, business development people, I think it's very important to understand all these trends and all these changes so that we can adapt quickly. Let's start the conversation. Roland, could you please then maybe introduce what are these key changes and what actually drive these changes in the behavior?
Yes, certainly. But first, I want also to give a bit of perspective why we are actually talking about buyers' behavior and why it is so foundational part of
Hmm.
today's marketing and sales. And the thing is that really you cannot make buyers behave the way you want, or you cannot push on them things. You cannot do hard sales. Basically, the best you can do is try to understand how buyers behave, how they make decisions,
Hmm.
and then you can adjust your marketing, your sales approach, and so on. So, in one word, I would say that knowing buyers' behavior is foundations to be successful with marketing and sales. And if we talk about buyers' behavior or what has been changing in, let's say, recent years, I would say that probably today, in some sense, we live in an age of rather broad distrust, right? And this
Hmm.
distrust, I think, is spanning all across societies. And in some countries, we see it more, in some less. But basically, if we look at trust into, let's say, media, or trust into
Hmm.
politicians, or vendors or salespeople, actually it's going down, and it's going down quite a bit. Like I was looking up
Yeah.
data, just trying to understand what's going on with trust, and one thing that is very clear, that in, let's say, in United States, there's a big problem with trust and with polarization of society. But I would say that also in other countries. And trust, as we have been, Andres, with you discussing many times before that, it's a like necessary prerequisite how you can actually sell,
Absolutely.
right?
Hmm.
And we know that trust is much more important, perhaps some 2-3 times more important than, let's say, price, or sometimes even product features, right? So we live in conditions with declining trust. And now, if you look more specifically, what are some indicators of that? So then we see over many previous years that buyers are willing to do more and more of their own research. They want to make up their own mind. And like some 20 years ago, when we started, our careers in technology industry, there was, like a like a big goal for you as a salesperson was to become a trusted advisor, and how such trusted relationships with your buyers. And today it seems that it's less and less possible, because buyers are doing their own research. They are accessing content, reading reports, and also
Hmm.
increasingly they are talking with their colleagues, with their peers, and so on.
Yeah, what I maybe just wanted to provoking in terms of this conversation, don't you believe that also partially us as marketeers in a way are responsible for this distrust? Because I'm reflecting now back, and I remember, this practice of acquiring customer data, like, giving them chance to register for something. And then what happened in most of cases, then those contacts were, passed to the sales, and then there is a guy or a girl who just pick up the phone and start calling and start trying to sell something. And I think we all learned that it's not the best way of doing this, because obviously there is different kind of stages of this buyer journey, as we call it nowadays, where people are, and not necessarily they always are willing and ready to have a sales conversation. So, and I think that our own kind of way of acting on those customers who initially trusted us by providing their contact information, causing also this distrust what is growing nowadays. What do you think?
Yes, I'm quite certain about that. And like one evidence is just take a look at your mailbox in the morning. How many of actually spam, or what is called in in more let's say marketable name, how many direct outreach emails you have there, how little relevance it has. And I think indeed you're right that marketing and sales have done quite a bit of abuse of customer trust, and they still continue doing that. They are mishandling customer data, they are passing customer data or selling actually customer data to third parties. They are producing very often like poorly hidden propaganda, let's say reports about some service or something. And when you pay more attention and you want to understand how this survey was done, who was interviewed and so on, you cannot find this data. So yes, I think that is indeed the case. And there was one piece of data which really shocked me recently. And look, it was Gartner's research which found out that if a salesperson has been participating in purchase process and has been influencing sales process, then actually more buyers had regret about their purchase than in cases when they were self-navigating the purchase process. Yes. So and I was a bit shocked about that, because it indeed, I think it just shows to what extent salespersons are trained to push through the sales, close the sales, to what extent they are incentivized for this, let's say, short-term results. And actually, if we look at numbers, so Gartner says that buyers say that only 24%, so basically 1/4 of sales rep led purchases later were recognized by buyers as a high quality deal, basically as a good deal, versus 65% if buyers were basically self-navigating, educating themselves, learning, etc., etc. Right? And I think this also illustrates why buyers are so inclined to do their own research. Probably some of them, I mean, most of them are not making the first purchase in their life. And I would imagine that many of them have had poor experience with the results from, too much listening to salesperson, right?
Absolutely. I think this short-term thinking, which is understandable on one hand, every organization is responsible for delivering revenue this month, this quarter, and so on and so forth, right? We probably cannot change it fundamentally. But what we also see that the customers are not willing to behave this way, right? And what is also, I think, important to recognize that this variety of different information sources, what is nowadays available, different tools, what available on the fingertips of our customers, so that they basically can really do on their own almost entire research and entire kind of decision-making process. While, as you mentioned, like 20 years ago when we started our careers, there was nothing like that. So there was obviously an internet, but it was very still basic information what you could find. Nowadays it's so quickly, so basically you go to the search engine, or you go to do now different services which are AI powered, and you can immediately gather a lot of information. But I think another aspect to look at it is that customers themselves, they became much more active in the digital environment, if you like. So by forming different formal and informal groups, professional communities, and things like that, where they gather information firsthand from people they can trust. What do you think?
That we see all the time, and actually, like this is something that both research confirms that actually buyers do not trust vendors and vendor salespeople, but they also say they don't trust, let's say, social media influencers or news media, and so on. But also, you know, like first-hand insights that we get when we do customer interviews. Like very often you hear when you're asking what was your decision process, or why did you turn exactly to this company. Very often what they say is that actually they have either heard about this company before, or they have participated in some kind of activities related to it, or actually they were recommended by their peers and colleagues. And to me, it seems, and again, this is something that is also collaborated by research, is that importance of those peer networks and informal or formal communities is actually increasing, because people are more likely to trust their peers. They're more more likely to trust people in communities, also online communities, than vendors or some kind of vendor created content.
Yeah, and I think also what with all the digital channels now being exposed and easily available is that the access to the expertise became very simple. So you can easily get Gartner report or McKinsey, like these big names, but also very niche kind of experts are available digitally nowadays, and you can get different useful information from universities, from professional associations, and things like that. Depends on what your business is and what type of the problem you are trying to solve. And that actually confirmed by many people I talked to as part of the customer interviews. One of the first thing what they mentioned in terms of where do they source information is that exactly that. So they turn to education, they turn to those associations, and so on and so on. Of course, we all tend to think that LinkedIn is kind of the main platform and the major platform where the professional people kind of communicate and share information. That's to a large extent is true. However, we also, from my at least personal experience, face situations where not necessarily all industries or all professions equally represented on the LinkedIn in terms of active participants and active kind of users, if you like. So
Yes, I think,
what do you think? What does it mean in terms of this marketing kind of activities, in terms of how shall we think of building this trust?
yes, I think, first of all, you have to consider always that before you get to conversation, or before you are considered at all, increasingly you need to build certain trust, certain reputation, and certain awareness. And actually, one more piece of research which we identified in previous days actually tells that buyers almost always buy from suppliers that they know when they start purchase process. So for new company, it's very, very difficult to hijack the purchase process, right? And therefore it means that companies really need to reevaluate their marketing investments, and they need to think how can they build awareness, how can they make sure that their company is known, and how can they actually build trust. How can they be known as somebody that can be trusted? And again, if we look at what trust is, this is also quite well researched topic. And actually, trust consists basically of some six criteria. And let me here give the list.
Yes.
So first thing related to trust, and the most important, is reliability. And what reliability means? Reliability means that your words or your promises match your actions, right? So you consistently deliver what you promise, so that your customer service is high, product quality is high, and so on. So that's like the most important. Distinct second is competency. So here what are critical components? Actually, first of all, a bit unexpectedly, is actually be proactive and actually listen to customer, right? Turns out that listening, understanding customer is a sign of
Sounds like a
competence.
basic thing, yeah.
Well, everything is basic thing. The tricky thing is to be disciplined about it, right? The second thing is educate, inspire, challenge the customer to change, right? This shows the importance of actually being a thought leader, producing content, speaking to communities, speaking on stages, and so on. Understanding of customer industry, right? Quite obviously. Third place is integrity, right? And here critical things are what? Be authentic, right? Authenticity. And stick to your principles, stick to your values. And here again, I think here it's important from marketing perspective to always remember that it's better to be authentic rather than be very polished and perfect. So do not hesitate to put your technical people on stage, even if they are less than perfect or less than polished. They will have passion, they will have authenticity, they will be very, very credible.
Yeah, just you know what popped up in my mind that now you mentioned about this authenticity and being polished, and we see now that this is exactly the trend, that everyone becomes so perfect with the help of ChatGPT or other AI tools that they start to speak suddenly like a perfect English language. They I don't know, have like very perfectly structured content, but then at some point of time, what you realize, and I believe that the same is on the customer side, that all becomes very, very the same. So there is very little difference what you can sense why this company is different from another company. And I think that's one important kind of thing to see how you can still, by leveraging AI, but be different. That's one. And secondly, what you rightly mentioned, I think, and this is still hugely underestimated and underused, this internal resource of technical people or of experts. And I know that not all people are born to be extrovert and speaking on public and so on and so forth. But it's not about that. I think even introvert people, they can be highly kind of useful in that sense that they can produce really in-depth content what can build this trust, but not necessarily they need to deliver that on stage or somehow publicly. So I think the role of the marketing is really to find the approach to those internal resources and find a way how you can leverage them in the best possible way. So by building this trust, what you just mentioned, because it's just such a great potential over there, I believe.
Yes, totally. And if we continue on this list of 6 items, so we were discussing integrity, and on integrity, important part is to be transparent and also making sure that customers understand what exactly they are getting. So do not include some kind of malicious small print conditions in contracts or use of terms. Fourth thing is purpose. So, and here is very important to be driven by something which is not profit, right? So have some mission to help technology companies grow, help local businesses export, and so on. So that's very important to build trust, because you feel that okay, these guys are not there for money only, right? Fifth is reputation, right? And it's interesting that how you build reputation. Like one way to build reputation is basically bring new insights, bring new ideas, research and trends. So again, being seen a bit of a thought leader, right? And also for reputation is important third parties. So what experts tell about you, what influencers tell about you, what reviews, referrals you have, and so on. And sixth component is, Andrei, can you guess what is sixth?
I don't have options.
All right.
Well, because I'm a bit now listening to this five what you mentioned, I'm thinking about them, and I try to apply that also to into practical terms. But that is something we can discuss afterward. Tell me, what is the sixth?
Yeah, number 6 is security. Actually, this again relates to trust.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we talked earlier how buyers have been abused by marketing and sales industry over last few years, right? So in terms of security, what is important? It's data protection, right, and proper handling of customer data. And this is increasingly problematic, because people have experience which makes them to be less and less open to share their personal data, right? And then very often I would say marketers would be well advised not to ask register for, I don't know, case study or something. Just give people your materials, right? And in terms of security, other things that relates to it, make sure that identities of, let's say, contract signers are clear, and so on. So these are components of trust, and basically if you look at trust is something that is not like some kind of abstract idea. These are quite specific, quite concrete things that companies need to think about, and that they need to think about, okay, how can I signal to the world that I'm trustworthy? How can I signal about my purpose? How can I signal about my integrity, about security, and so on? And that is, I think, entirely doable. And that I would say is something that companies need to think of, how to build trust, how to demonstrate trust, and so on.
Yeah, what you mentioned, like one of these 6 points you mentioned, and before that also you mentioned about the another study that shows that people buying from brands they know, or from companies they know largely, right? That made me think that we typically in B2B, we somehow not really pay enough attention to the branding and stuff like that, because it seems like, hey, branding, it's waste of money. You need to deliver
that's
pipeline.
That's for Adidas or Nike, right? That's
not
for us.
Coca-Cola or something like that. These are the consumer brand. But I think that is exactly what is happening nowadays, that this shift, because every single decision maker in the B2B is also a consumer, right? And that is what they want to have in this experience, and they also are looking for like some brand they can trust in the B2B when they deciding whom they want to partner with for certain project or something like that. And everything what you mentioned is part of the brand. So building the brand means also building this trust element. And I think in the B2B probably it's even more important than in B2C, if I may assume so, because in B2B the trust is basically the zero level let's say security, if you like, before you're making or entering into any conversation on the potential partnership and deal, right? And I think if you look from the marketing perspective and sales even, so what we potentially can do just like in the daily daily perspective, do you have any practical advice here? So how convert all these like 6 points what you just mentioned into practice?
Yes. Well, first of all, I think companies need to start for practical purposes knowing exactly who their customer is, who is their
Yeah.
ideal customer profile, who is the buyer. And once you know that, then you are in very good position to prepare different kind of information, different kind of content to basically start engaging these people, basically talking to this audience, and also paying attention to those six elements of trust, because I think in consumer industry, companies have long understood that when people make decisions, they use mental shortcuts, right? So they don't like to spend energy on making decisions. They follow the easiest path, and exactly the same you want to do with awareness and branding in B2B. You want to be known, you want to be trusted, and again, as research shows, you can close the deal almost only if your buyers already knew about you before they started the purchase process. Here I want a bit talk about branding as well, because somehow quite often branding is seen very simple as basically as a logo and a tagline. But that's not what brand is. We should look at brand as basically a summary of everything you do, which is creating certain impression, certain reputation about you in the
Reputation is
minds
a key, I
of
think,
your
in the
buyers.
B2B. Yeah.
Yes, and sometimes it's even said that actually your your brand or your reputation is what you actually do when nobody's watching you, right? So being authentic with your values and so on. So again, just to summarize, for my recommendation for B2B marketers would be to really think how they can build reputation, awareness, and brand, because actually research shows more and more that unless you do it, unless you invest in this homework, it is very difficult for your colleagues in sales to ever get to conversation with buyers.
Yeah, and I just only would like to add on top of that it's important to respect the buyer journey kind of concept in a way. So, and if you really understand that well and you apply it to what you do, so then you can avoid a lot of those abuse mistakes, if you like, right? By just having a right purpose and right objective for your activities based on this buyer journey. So if people are looking for the help on understanding the problem and how to solve that, that is exactly what you have to do, not to try to sell them. Because if you will help them achieving this objective, that will create a connection with you and your company, and as exactly based on the trust. And then most likely they will continue this journey with you, at least coming and maybe asking some questions, and then that's at least create some chances that they become your customers, your paying customers. And I think that's what many afraid of. They think, oh, if we will not try to sell that at this point of time, we will never have this chance. And I think that requires quite a significant mindset shift, both on the marketing but also on the company leadership team. So what do they expect, and when they do expect? Of course, this type of approach that's like kind of postpone the tangible result in terms of the pipeline or something like that. But we have to understand that it's anyway will be that way. So regardless whether you do just a cold calling every day, people simply will not sign up with you, or the results will be anyway very low. Instead, if you build that trust first, and then you combine it with these traditional activities like outreach, cold calling, or whatever else, that will definitely improve your outcomes from these activities for sure.
Yes, I would go even further, and I would say that today, knowing customer behavior, right, We know it quite clearly, and it's supported both by experience, both by what we hear back from buyers, and also with research, is that companies actually win deals long before they have had the first sales conversation with customer, right? Just to illustrate, we know that 90% of deals are won by brands that buyers knew before they started formal purchase process, right? So if they knew you have some chance to win. We also know that 95% of buying journey buyers do on their own, right? We also know that buyers only talk with maybe 2, maybe 3 sellers that they have in their shortlist. So unless marketing has done its job with building awareness, building reputation, building trust, your sellers do not have a chance. And if you ask me, I would say that 90% of companies are over-investing in sales and under-investing in marketing. And particularly, they are under-investing their efforts to align both marketing and sales functions to function as one.
Yeah, it's a good summary. I just would like to add to your 90s statistics that it's also important to recognize that 95% or close to that of your addressable market is not ready to buy. So they need help in understanding why they need to do that. So basically think of this, and this on one hand represents a challenge, but same time it's a huge opportunity. And if you turn at least some of your efforts to working with them, you will build quite a substantial pipeline for your upcoming periods, right? And I think that's exactly what maybe we can have as a final thought for this conversation for today, at least, because definitely this is something what can be continued again and again, and there are a lot of things to be discussed. But as time run out, I think thanks, Roland, for preparing those insights and sharing them. I hope that our listeners and our kind of participants of the live session value that. If you guys have any questions, you always are welcome to reach out and ask us directly. We are happy to share more. And for those who are new to our community, I just wanted to quickly remind that we have all these episodes available as podcasts, both on the YouTube, but also on the leading podcast platforms. Just go and search for B2B Sales and Marketing Fry Talks, and you probably will find us. And please give us the feedback by voting, by providing your evaluation for these podcasts and episodes. We are looking forward to hear from you and to improve our work here. Otherwise, thanks a lot for being with us. And as usually, we meet again in 2 weeks and continue talking about B2B sales and marketing. Stay tuned. Thanks a lot.
Bye.